Welcome in to NESN Bets Kickoff. George Blechter here with Claudia Bellafato on the PNC Bank Sports Corner. We got a Monday night doubleheader for you guys tonight. Starting out, Eagles at Tampa Bay. Then, of course, goes to the Rams and Bengals in a showdown as well. So, Claudia, first off, when it comes to these Monday night doubleheaders, I love it. It's just more football, more bets to place.
I love it, but I just got the update that Joe Burrow is expected to start, and it just ruined my whole night. Man, if he gets hurt, I'm not going to be happy. It's going to turn a really fun night because, yes, doubleheaders are great, into a bad one.
Especially if Jake Browning gets a start, one pass attempt. But first, let's start with the fun matchup in this one. The Eagles, Tampa Bay, battle of 2-0 teams. Obviously, Eagles doing what we expected. Offense has been off to a slower start these past 2 weeks. Tampa, the surprise. Baker Mayfield getting a resurgence down in Florida. This game, Eagles favored by 5 points. Where do you lie here when you look at this one?
Yeah, so you see the 5 on the graphic here. This opened 7. For everything you just talked about, the Eagles getting off to a slower start than expected. The Bucs just being 2-0. Baker Mayfield looking good. The defense looking good, which a lot of people didn't think it would. At least the D-line, I know you'll talk about in the trenches specifically with both defenses. But because this market has moved the line the opposite direction, like I think that the Eagles could have covered the 7, but I feel even better about the 5. If they were still laying 7, it would be a good tease spot. But either way, they are the better team. I think they've shaken off some of the rust that they had in those first 2 weeks, and this is a really good get-right spot for them to not make Eagles better sweat, because I was on them in the first 2 weeks, and I did sweat a little bit. But I do like them in this spot to expose some of the weaknesses that the Bucs have not shown in the first 2 weeks, that they didn't show against the Vikings and the Bears. This is a spot where I think we will see that.
And yeah, I think it's that meeting too where the Bucs, it's impressive to be off to a 2-0 start. Baker Mayfield's been smart with the football. His tackles are keeping him clean, which will be so important against a pass rush that the Eagles bring with them. And also under Dave Canales in the system. It's the same system he played in when he was with the Los Angeles Rams. Canales comes from Shane Waldron up in Seattle. The offensive coordinator that resurrected Geno Smith's career, Dave Canales, was his quarterback coach. Come to Tampa, we're seeing the same results. Same thing, too. 2 great receivers, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin playing with Baker. They get them into play action. They have zone run blocking schemes. Everything's going right for them. But I think when it comes to it, the Eagles on a longer break because they're coming off a Thursday night football game, so more than just the week off. And what we've seen, week 1, that was the first time they were actually playing because all the starters rested in the preseason. Week 2 against the Vikings, they dominated that game, and then a late Kirk Cousins touchdown that Spy loves to play in.
God,
Down 2
that's
scores.
just so Vikings.
Late in the game, empty touchdown pass. That's when Kirk Cousins shows up. But now this is the point where you get it to. This is a lesser opponent. So I'm the same as you. I like that I waited on this number. I'll get it right now at 5. Maybe more money will come in down to the Buccaneers, and maybe you get to 4.5. But I think this is where it'll be. So I think hop on it now if you like it at this spot.
I think so.
And the same thing on team total. I'm just going to stay away from this one. Let's get into the player props. Jalen Hurts, 236.5 passing yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns, 44.5 rushing yards. Is there any play with Jalen Hurts you like in this?
I don't really love anything. I think you can always look at his rush yards and feel comfortable going over because he's always been consistent with that. But passing yards, I'm trying to think of game script wise. Like if they get up early, then they're not going to have to pass the ball as much. So I'd maybe look at some rushers. Either way, it's probably a no play for me because I know he can get over that number. But if game script goes according to plan, then he won't have to.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the passing touchdowns number. We saw 1 passing touchdown in the first 2 weeks. He had 2 rushing touchdowns against the Vikings. The Buccaneers, good front 7, weaker on the back end. Jamel Dean, I think maybe they pick on him. And I think that's why if there's any of the props for Jalen Hurts, I would go over on the passing touchdowns. But I think to me it's more I'd feel confident. We'll get into that a little later on. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I'd rather target in on the receivers and get numbers where I like because Jalen Hurts, same thing. When they get in the red zone, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift, Jalen Hurts had 2 rushing touchdowns. They're not afraid to run it with him because that's such a sure thing when they get in the scoring area.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're talking quarterbacks, because I know we only have 10 minutes here, so I want to make sure I actually give out the plays. I do like Baker Mayfield over 34.5 attempts. Again, with game script, if they're playing from behind, they're going to have to throw the ball. He's had 34 attempts in both weeks, and the Eagles have allowed the 5th most pass attempts a game. A lot of that came from Mac Jones, but I like this number at 34.5 going with that game script. And one player you might not think of, because we all think Godwin and Evans, is tight end K-Daw. And now I like to go over the low numbers. You're seeing 25.5 out there, 2.5 catches, which is juiced up to 3.5. But I would go over probably both of those. Eagles allowing the 3rd most catches to tight end, 4th most yards. He had 6 catches on 6 targets in week 2. And again, with how the coverage I think will be. It's going to be on Godwin and on Evans mostly. And if it's tough to get it down the field for Baker, those checkdowns are going to be easy. So I'd say Otton over on yards and Mayfield over attempts are probably my 2 best plays for this game.
I like that, and I'll say to the viewers too, I have the Facebook live stream up on my screen right now too, so if you want to comment with a question for Claudia and I, go ahead, fire away. We'll make sure to answer them. I like that you go with Cade Otton because we've seen in this Eagles defense, lost both starting linebackers from last season, both starting safeties, trying to figure things out. That's when you exploit them with the inexperience and play. You mentioned the low number. I'm going to go DeAndre Swift over 38.5 rushing yards. This is a guy coming off 28 carries, 175 yards, second career game for him with 20-plus carries. But he can get to 38 yards on 10 or 15 carries. I think it's so important. We won't see him at this number a ton, but on long week, longer rest, we've seen OC Brian Johnson and head coach Nick Sirianni as well say they're going to go with the hot hand. I get it, Kenneth Gainwell. There's so many mouths to feed. DeAndre Swift, clear cut in a way, is the most talented, best running back in that backfield. At that low number, 38.5, after going for 175, he looked decisive, he looked healthy, and behind Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, those road pavers, I really love DeAndre Swift. Give him 10, 12 carries, he could get over this number.
Yeah.
So I'm going to buy the dip on Swift right now.
Explosiveness is there, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
And he's even a threat in the passing game. Didn't get a lot of receptions, but he's always on the field. Let's go to the receivers quick. Any receiving props you like outside of Otton if we look at the Eagles side?
Honestly, no, I don't love it. I think you can never go wrong with any of them. But to be honest, I'm really just looking at the passing game for the other side here with the Bucs, which is weird of me, but fine.
Hey, I like it. You're betting on Baker, but it's also, again, in that Shane Waldron, Dave Canales system. For me, I'll go over 4.5 receptions. A.J. Brown, you can get that plus 120. So I love finding the plus money in that. 10 targets week 1, 6 week 2, 7 and 4 catches. Would have had it. Again, I'm saying after this long break, we saw A.J. Brown getting passionate on the sidelines, wanting the ball. They came out right away, started targeting him, but penalties took that catches and a touchdown away what would have been.
Yeah.
I think they want to get him happy. And this will be a game where we see the offense really start to get going for the Eagles. They know they have to come out in week 3, and that'll play right into you. If they get going, Baker's throwing the ball more, finding Cade Otton more.
I mean, you can never go wrong with A.J. Brown. I think I have him on my fantasy team, and I've been
do
waiting for him to score some more points. So I'm hesitant to go over and bet money on the over on yards and catches. But like you said, the targets should be there because there's clearly been some discomfort on his sides. He's like, hey, even when I'm not open, I'm open.
Yeah.
So just throw me the ball. So I think if you have to pick a player, it's usually a safe play on Brown.
26 years old, entering his prime, 4.5 receptions. A.J. Brown, he could easily get that. All right, let's go to the nightcap of this game. Rams, Bengals. Rams are 3-point dogs. As you said, Claudia, to open up, Joe Burrow getting the go. I can't believe they're doing it.
Yeah.
What are you thinking on this game?
Especially with how this O-line has looked. It absolutely makes no sense. This line has moved a lot as well. This opened 7.5, as George just said. It's 3 across the board. And I would take the points. Honestly, I'd probably take the points even if Burrow was out there. And don't get me wrong, I've been so high on this Bengals team. I'm so high on Joe Burrow. But it doesn't matter what position you're playing. If you're not 100% healthy, you're not going to be playing at your best. And that's why I know that Browning's only had one attempt.
One pass attempt, not one start. One pass attempt.
5 years in the league. Like, I get that. But why risk hurting a franchise quarterback for a week 3 game? Anyways, I'm going to take the points because Stafford has looked good. He has done really well with what he's been given, not having Cooper Kupp out there. Some great young talent, and we're going to talk about props in a second. So with all of that said, I mean, blowout over the Seahawks, beat down by the Niners, but the Niners are just so electric. But the Seahawks are a good team, so I think you have to take that into account.
Yeah.
The Rams have brought a lot more to the table than I think anybody expected them to, and the Bengals have done the opposite of that. And I know there's a lot of reasons for that, but in this spot, to get a field goal with a team that has looked good, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rams +3 just like you on this spot. I'm giving the coaching advantage to the Rams and Sean McVay.
That too, yeah.
Veteran leadership, and you just alluded to the young weapons they have as well. This offense will show up against the Bengals. They're still trying to figure out life without their 2 safeties, Von Bell and Jesse Bates as well. Lou Anarumo, one of the best defensive coordinators, but I'm going to bet on Sean McVay in this spot. You mentioned it. Let's get into the props. I love Matt Stafford over 253.5 passing yards in this one. I think their offense flows through him. And even with Kyron Williams emerging as RB1, he's the only guy left after they trade Cam Akers. He's such a big threat in the passing game. All the weapons at his disposal. And while the Bengals may lean on Joe Mixon and running the ball, the Rams just have to go out and win games, and that's all they have to do. And it's playing through Stafford, over 300 yards the first 2 games of the season, 253.5. With these weapons at his disposal, I like him in this spot.
Yeah, you talked about the 2 running backs that I wanted to look at. Williams over. So he's had 52 rush yards in the first 2 weeks each. The Bengals haven't been able to stop the run no matter who they're facing. And I know that he's a young talent. He is emerging. He's sort of forced into the spot that he probably didn't expect to be in week 3. But from what we've seen, he's capable of getting to that number. So I'd go over on Williams. Mixon, best bet I put out on Ultimate Betting Show. I think whether or not Burrow's in there for the full game or not, it's only going to help him because they're going to have the threat of the passing game and the run game. His line's at 60.5. He's had close to 60 yards in each of the first 2 weeks, and the Rams let McCaffrey go for 116. Kenneth Walker have 64 in week 1. So with what Mixon does possess when it comes to explosiveness, we might not see it all the time, but again, he is capable of getting there. I'd go over 60.5. And I'm very curious what you think on Puka Nacua out of BYU. He has absolutely taken over the fantasy world specifically because of what he has done when it comes to targets. 15 and 20 targets in the first 2 weeks, 25 catches total, rookie record in all of NFL history. Close to 120, 150 yards, yet his line is set at 70.5 and only 6.5 catches. Now, of course, the books don't want to over-adjust the numbers because then everybody's just going to play the under, but it feels a little fishy to me.
Yeah.
Do the books know something that I don't? Is he really supposed to regress that much? And we joked about it with our team, our camera guys in the Ultimate Betting Show. I'm like, I feel like this is the one spot. And one of our guys goes, yeah, I literally just started him this week, and I feel like this is when
the spot. He's going to get the tougher matchup in Cam Taylor-Britt. I think that's only good out of the 2 corners that the Bengals have in Chido Awuzie and Cam Taylor-Britt. So maybe it's that. He's been questionable with an oblique injury. To me, I still like Puka at that number, over 72.5 receiving yards. You mentioned it. I mean, there was all the hype with Higbee as a tight end coming into this. But Puka Nacua, a guy out of BYU, has always been a stud. Even going into last season, had the hype. With Cooper Kupp out, he has stepped up in that role. So that's why I believe that they'll still go on him on that. I'll go the opposite side of Tutu Atwell because I'm getting a lower number, 54.5 receiving yards. Again, he'll get Chido Awuzie, 8 targets, 70-yard floor is what I've seen from him. 15.1 yards per catch is what he gets. 95% route participation, 20% target share. So for that reason, I'll go Tutu Atwell on this one. So I like the Puka Nacua play. I like the Kyron Williams play. I know this is new for him in a way. He was the guy at Notre Dame. Saw him play in high school. First time I saw him play when he was down in Missouri, I said that's Alvin Kamara, Le'Veon Bell meeting together. He's a guy that can run routes but get the run game going. Really patient. So I love that play by Kyron Williams.
That's good company to be in. Comparison like that, I'd feel pretty all right with that.
I know. I'm jumping ahead on that. I got out in front. He's making me look good so far.
For sure.
Hey, I like all the props plays. Also, real quick, we'll touch on before we wrap up. Burrow, Mixon. You touched on Mixon. Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I'm just going to stay away because I don't know what's going to happen at quarterback.
I can't. Yeah, exactly. I would stay away from anything in the passing game.
Yeah, you could bet
or under on Burrow, because to be completely honest,
Fair.
it might feel wrong, but yeah.
It's weird to short one of the best quarterbacks in the game as well. For Claudio Bellafato, I'm George Blecci. Thanks for tuning in to NESN Bets Kickoff in the PNC Bank Sports Corner. PNC, where banking is made easier. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys later on Thursday night.